What you're about to witness will shake the very foundation of professional wrestling as we know it. After years of bitter rivalry, backstabbing, and bloodshed that tore apart the most dominant faction in WWE history, the impossible is happening. Roman Reigns and Jon Moxley were just spotted together, and they weren't in their usual gear. They were wearing OTC1 tactical vests. The same vests that once symbolized brotherhood, dominance, and absolute control over the entire WWE landscape. I'm not talking about a friendly encounter. I'm not talking about a casual backstage moment. I'm talking about a calculated, strategic reunion that WWE has been desperately trying to keep under wraps, and the plans they have for Survivor Series will change everything you thought you knew about the current landscape of professional wrestling. If this doesn't make your blood boil with anticipation, if this doesn't make you question every storyline you've been following for the past 3 years, then you haven't been paying attention. Hit that like button right now because what I'm about to reveal will have you questioning whether WWE just made the most brilliant decision in company history or whether they're about to ignite a war that nobody is prepared for. And trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to want to share this with every wrestling fan you know because the implications are absolutely massive. Let me take you back to a moment that still gives longtime fans chills. 2012, 3 men stood in that ring, fists raised together, and declared war on the entire WWE roster. The Shield didn't just arrive, they conquered. Roman Reigns, the powerhouse, Seth Rollins, the architect, and Jon Moxley, then known as Dean Ambrose, the lunatic fringe. They were unstoppable. They revolutionized tag team wrestling, they revolutionized faction warfare, and they became the blueprint for every group that came after them. But like all great empires, the Shield crumbled from within. Seth's betrayal in 2014 sent shockwaves that are still felt today. The reunions that followed were always temporary, always tainted by mistrust, and always ended in chaos. Moxley eventually left WWE entirely, transforming into an even more dangerous version of himself in AEW, while Roman ascended to become the tribal chief, the head of the table, the most dominant WWE champion in modern history. These two men haven't stood side by side with a common purpose in years. Their paths diverged so dramatically that fans had accepted we'd never see them together again. Moxley built his legacy outside WWE's walls, becoming AEW's cornerstone, their world champion, their locker room leader. Meanwhile, Roman constructed an empire within WWE, with the bloodline becoming the most compelling storyline in wrestling. The tribal politics, the family drama, the acknowledgement gimmick, it was all Roman's show. But here's what nobody saw coming. Here's what has the entire wrestling industry in absolute chaos right now. Last week, in an undisclosed location that multiple sources have confirmed to be related to Survivor Series preparation, Roman Reigns and Jon Moxley were photographed together. Not in street clothes. Not in their individual gear. In matching OTC1 tactical vests. Now, some of you might be thinking this is just merchandise, just a photo opportunity, just two old friends catching up. But you need to understand what OTC1 represents. This isn't just the Shield's old gear. This is a symbol. When they wore those vests, they were making a statement: we are one. The letters OTC stood for their motto, their creed, their identity. One team, one mission. This wasn't casual. This wasn't accidental. This was a message, and WWE knows exactly what message they're sending to the entire wrestling world. The fact that Jon Moxley, who has been AEW's flag bearer, who has represented everything that Tony Khan's promotion stands for, is now photographed with Roman Reigns in WWE-related gear? This isn't just shocking. This is seismic. Let me break down what my sources inside WWE have been whispering about for weeks. Survivor Series 2025 is being positioned as the most significant event of the year, potentially even bigger than WrestleMania in terms of long-term storytelling implications. WWE has been quietly negotiating with AEW for a one-time appearance deal that would allow Jon Moxley to work Survivor Series as part of a historic Shield reunion. Now, before you start screaming about how impossible this is, remember that wrestling has given us the impossible before. Sting in WWE. The Monday Night Wars ending with WWE's acquisition of WCW. CM Punk returning to wrestling through AEW. Stone Cold and Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. The industry thrives on moments that fans thought they'd never witness. This Shield reunion at Survivor Series would be exactly that kind of moment. But here's where it gets even more intense, and this is where you need to pay very close attention because the implications are staggering. The current plan, according to multiple sources close to WWE's creative team, isn't just to have the Shield reunite for a nostalgic moment or a quick pop. The plan is to have Roman Reigns and Jon Moxley, along with a third member that I'll reveal in a moment, face the Bloodline. Not Roman's Bloodline. Solo Sikoa's version of the Bloodline. The faction that has grown increasingly hostile toward Roman since his hiatus. The group that believes they've surpassed the tribal chief's legacy. This would position the Shield as the nuclear option, the final weapon that Roman Reigns can deploy when his own family has turned against him completely. Think about the storytelling depth here. Roman spent years building the bloodline, manipulating his family, controlling every aspect of their careers, demanding acknowledgement and respect. But in doing so, he created monsters who no longer need him. Solo has emerged as a legitimate threat. Jacob Fatu has been positioned as an unstoppable force. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa have added veteran experience and brutality. They've essentially told Roman that the bloodline exists without him, that he's become irrelevant to the empire he built. So what does the tribal chief do when his own tribe rejects him? He returns to his original tribe. He goes back to the brothers who stood with him before the family politics, before the championship reigns, before the power corrupted everything. He reunites the Shield. And Jon Moxley's involvement makes perfect psychological sense when you really examine his character evolution. In AEW, Moxley has been the ultimate warrior, the guy who fights for purity in wrestling, who stands against corporate manipulation and sports entertainment excess. But the Shield was different. The Shield was authentic brotherhood. It was three guys who genuinely had each other's backs before the business destroyed their bond. For Moxley to return to WWE specifically for this, to stand with Roman one more time against a common enemy, it tells a story about loyalty that transcends company politics. It says that some bonds are stronger than business decisions, stronger than corporate allegiances, stronger than any storyline that's been written since. Now, about that third member. Seth Rollins is the obvious choice, right? The architect returning to complete the trio? But my sources are suggesting something different, something that would be equally shocking in a completely different way. There's strong indication that the third person in OTC1 gear at Survivor Series might not be Seth at all. It could be Sami Zayn. Yes, you heard that correctly. Sami Zayn, the honorary US, the guy who infiltrated the bloodline and became Roman's unlikely ally before their inevitable fallout. Sami wearing Shield gear would be WWE's way of saying that the Shield isn't just about the original three members anymore. It's about the ideology. It's about brothers who fight together against impossible odds. And Sami has proven he embodies that spirit. This would also create an entirely new dynamic because Seth Rollins has been feuding with various members of the bloodline separately. Having Sami step into the Shield role would position Seth as the wild card, the unpredictable element who could interfere on either side, who has history with everyone involved, who betrayed the Shield originally and might do it again. The storytelling possibilities are absolutely endless, and that's exactly the kind of complex, layered narrative that WWE has been building toward with their best storylines. Let's talk about why this matters beyond just the spectacle. Professional wrestling thrives on moments that feel authentic, that tap into real emotions and genuine history between performers. The Shield's original run wasn't just scripted entertainment. Those three men genuinely bonded. They traveled together, they grew together, they revolutionized WWE together. When they split, it wasn't just a storyline. It represented real career paths diverging, real philosophical differences about what wrestling should be, real friendships tested by business decisions. A reunion now, years later, after everything they've individually accomplished and endured, carries weight that you can't manufacture. It's earned. It's meaningful. And fans will respond to that authenticity in ways that scripted drama can never quite capture. The OTC1 gear specifically is genius from a marketing perspective too. WWE has been sitting on Shield merchandise potential for years, knowing that nostalgia for that era runs deep with fans who are now in their prime spending years. By bringing back the tactical vest aesthetic but updating it with modern design elements, they're creating a merchandising opportunity that will generate millions in revenue while simultaneously telling a story that justifies its existence. This isn't just slapping old logos on new shirts. This is reactivating one of the most iconic looks in modern wrestling history for a specific narrative purpose. And let's address the elephant in the room. How does this work with Jon Moxley's AEW contract? Multiple industry insiders have suggested that this is a unique loan agreement, similar to how other sports handle player exchanges for special events. Tony Khan would benefit from the mainstream attention this generates for one of his top stars. WWE obviously benefits from having Moxley's credibility and star power for a major event. And Moxley himself gets to complete a story that has haunted his career since he left WWE. Everyone wins in this scenario, which is why it's actually more plausible than it initially sounds. Wrestling companies have learned that cooperation on major moments often generates more money than competition, especially when the story being told resonates with fans across company lines. The timing also aligns perfectly with WWE's broader strategy. They're under new management with TKO Group, they're more open to cross-promotional concepts, and they're actively looking for ways to make every major event feel genuinely special rather than just another pay-per-view on the calendar. A Shield reunion at Survivor Series, with the twist of Jon Moxley crossing company lines for one night, would generate mainstream media attention, social media engagement, and fan investment that extends far beyond the wrestling bubble. It's the kind of moment that gets covered by ESPN, that trends worldwide on Twitter, that becomes a cultural conversation rather than just a wrestling angle. But here's what should really concern every wrestling fan, regardless of which company you prefer. If this happens, if the Shield truly reunites at Survivor Series with Jon Moxley crossing from AEW, what does that mean for the walls between promotions? Are we entering an era where the forbidden door isn't just occasionally opened but permanently unlocked? Does this set a precedent that top stars can freely move between companies for special attractions, turning professional wrestling into something closer to boxing where fighters compete across different promotional banners? The implications for the industry's future are enormous, and this Shield reunion might be the catalyst that changes everything about how wrestling operates. I want to hear from you right now in the comments. Do you believe this Shield reunion is actually happening? Are you excited or angry about Jon Moxley potentially appearing in WWE while still being AEW's face? Who do you think should be the third member of the Shield at Survivor Series? And most importantly, do you think they can actually defeat Solo Sikoa's version of the Bloodline? Drop your predictions below because I genuinely want to know where the Ring Rumble community stands on this absolutely insane development. If you've made it this far, you're clearly as invested in this story as I am, and that means you're exactly the kind of passionate wrestling fan that makes this channel special. Please, do me a favor and subscribe right now. I know everyone asks for subscriptions, but here's why it actually matters for Ring Rumble specifically. This channel exists because of fans like you who want real analysis, who want the backstage information, who want someone to connect the dots and explain why these moments matter beyond just the surface-level spectacle. Every subscription tells YouTube's algorithm that this content deserves to reach more wrestling fans who are hungry for this depth of coverage. We're building something special here, a community that doesn't just consume wrestling but truly understands and appreciates the art form. Be part of that. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's experience these incredible moments together. The Shield reunion that seemed impossible is apparently happening. Roman Reigns and Jon Moxley in matching OTC1 gear isn't a fantasy booking anymore. It's reality. And at Survivor Series, we might witness one of the most significant moments in professional wrestling history. The question isn't whether you should watch. The question is whether you're ready for everything that comes after this moment changes the industry forever.